Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. I met my boyfriend David on an online dating app 4 years ago. He had just moved to the USA for college and had joined the dating app I was on to make friends and to find himself a guide to show him around the city. David and I were very different from the get-go. We not only had a small language barrier, but likes and dislikes were very different too. What actually attracted me was his sense of humor, his kindness, and what I thought was his genuineness, honesty, and simplicity. Who knew, though, the same man who I thought was this great person was also a master liar? Well, I didn't. That's why I've reached this point where I'm practically stranded in a country that I have absolutely no idea about. Back to the basics, though. As I mentioned earlier, David and I have been dating for about 4 years. In these 4 years, it's just been David visiting back his home country. I'm obviously not going to mention the name of the country, but yeah, he made trips to his home state every other year. I had always known that David's family was pretty strict and conservative, so I never pressed him to take me with him. My family being the complete opposite to that. They've met them multiple times, and so far they've loved him. Well, our 5-year anniversary is soon approaching, and I felt extremely excited for it. My excitement only increased once David told me that he has planned this elaborate, dreamy-sounding getaway for an entire week. I was in love with that idea and started packing for it months in advance. We talked and talked about it for hours. We made plans on what to do, where to go, and all the memories we were planning to make. My excitement increased with each day passing by, and eventually, the day that we're about to board the flight arrives. Everything seemed as fine as it possibly could. David had no sign of anxiousness, stress, or even guilt on his face. The fact that he was talking about how excited he was to spend some alone time on this trip, till the moment we got off the plane, honestly puts me in a shock till now. Well, being blind to what's actually happening in the background, I'm still very excited and honestly tired the moment we land. I'm just wanting to get to our hotel room, but wouldn't you guys guess? This is the moment where David thinks it is best to drop this nuclear bombshell on me. It's the moment as the flight lands and we're out waiting for what I'm assuming is a cab driver. Nope. That cab isn't what we're greeted by. We're greeted by this huge group of people. There's at least 7 of them. I'm absolutely shocked, and my inner social anxiety is just desperately hoping that it's a misunderstanding. Unfortunately, it isn't, because they all eventually walk up to David, hug him as tightly as they possibly can, and give me this look as if I'm some alien. My anxiety is through the roof at this point, and I'm just looking at David for answers. It's only after his long greeting ceremony, which felt like an eternity, that he tells me that it's none other than his family. I'm absolutely dumbfounded. My anxiety is through the roof at this point, and things are just feel like they're slipping away as David continues to talk to his family in a language I can barely understand. It is there I realize that this man had not only lied to me about his home state, but also his native tongue. Well, thankfully though, even with all the death glares from David's family, I was allowed to live inside their house. I was so shocked at this change of plans that I legit could not get myself to argue or do anything. So I just went with whatever I had the easiest access to, and that was following David at his parents' place. The place was huge, and David and I were immediately given 2 different rooms. I was flabbergasted. I felt like I was put into some high school camping trip instead of a romantic getaway. Once again, though, having no options, I stayed quiet. It is at this point David began avoiding me. He would either reply to me with short answers or avoid me completely altogether. His family almost always gave me funny looks. Almost no one understood English there except for like 2 out of the 7 people who too never spoke to me, except for when they wanted to ask me questions about the USA. The plans of a week-long getaway extended to 2 weeks. It started to feel like a nightmare. The trip seemed never-ending. I was receiving no answers from David, and eventually I reached my breaking point. Yesterday, I blew up at David in front of his family itself, telling him how scammed I feel and how wrong it was of him to do whatever he had been doing. All of a sudden, all these people started yelling at me while David tried to calm us all down. I understood no one, except for the 2 people speaking English telling me that they felt the same way about me as I did about them. I was done. I was no longer scared about my safety. I just knew I needed to get out of this house because if I stayed there a moment longer, I'd lose my sanity. So I packed my bags in rage and with my absolute broken English, thankfully was able to find a room. My phone started blowing up nonstop from David ever since. He kept apologizing to me, telling me that he needed a chance to speak to me, and me being in the rage I was in told him that I wanted to do nothing with him. I've blocked him ever since and have booked myself tickets back home. Ever since then, though, he's tried reaching out to me through my family who keep trying to convince me to stay back and hear him out. I have absolutely no interest in any of that, though. I honestly feel like this experience has given me some sort of trauma. It also feels like it's just the beginning of it. What should I do here? Is it really my mistake? AITA? There's not a lot to update currently, but I finally landed back home, and calling this a bliss would really be an understatement because I'm finally feeling like I fit in. I've spent the past week working from home while staying with a friend of mine as I feel too drained to go outside the house. David has not stopped attempting to contact me through my family and our mutual friends under the pretext that we've just had a misunderstanding and I refuse to talk to him because of that. It's all starting to piss me off now and is putting me in shock. This man has absolutely no accountability. Even with his attempts to reconcile, I can't get myself to lend my hand out because I just feel like I can't trust him anymore, and no amount of explanation will ever do it for me. Even his attempts have started to feel fake to me. It's like even though I don't have the answers as to why he did what he did, I can't get myself to accept it. It's sort of all starting to weigh on me and make me feel guilty because after all, we've been together for such a long time. Am I really wrong for feeling this way? I finally decided to unblock David's contact and meet him up because my family wouldn't stop pressuring me over it all, even after I told them about everything that happened. To them, this all just seems like a misunderstanding and a bunch of miscalculations from David's end, and honestly, I don't blame them either because if I heard this story second-handed and didn't see David's family and their absolute dislike towards me, I'd also try to chalk everything up to a misunderstanding, stemming through to the fact that David trying to do something nice. That's not the case, though. I've seen it and endured everything first-handedly and knew there was something way darker and malicious behind David's plan, and it was confirmed to me when we met. David confessed to me upon our meeting that the only reason he had lied to me and told me the wrong things about his family was, and the country he belonged to, because he apparently wanted to protect his family's identity initially. Then, when things started to get serious between the two of us, he knew he didn't want to confess the truth and lose me. So, went on with his lie until he realized he wanted to marry me and then made this elaborate plan, led me on for 4 months and took me to visit his parents, expecting everything to go great, thinking his parents would be happy about the fact that he's dating an American and that he and his siblings would somehow get a green card. I was stunned. David just looked like he was tone deaf because the look on his face as he confessed all of this to me screamed that he expected me to just forgive him and take him back. I couldn't, though. He just stopped further down for me after this confession. I was left speechless. Nothing but tears spoke out everything I was trying to say. I was disgusted as David tried to hold me and comfort me. I told him we were done. He then had the audacity to follow me as I started walking towards my car. I threatened him with a restraining order, telling him to stay away from me and my family. The saddened look on both of our faces was heartbreaking, but I knew he and I both needed to learn this lesson. My parents once again aren't happy with my decision, but I've also put them into their place this time by letting them know that they were free to take in David as their son if they were so disappointed in me. I guess my rage told him exactly how angry I was because they've left me alone ever since about the situation. I moved out of the apartment David and I used to share today. David moved out of the apartment and back to his home country long ago because apparently he had nothing to lose. From what our mutual friends had told me, he had his job and position transferred back to his home country and was planning to explore. Well, that was yet another one of his horrible lies, as it didn't take him longer than a month to update his Facebook status from single to engaged. Yes, the same man who left the USA to explore himself got engaged. I suspect it's some girl his parents found for him, I'm not sure. This definitely has caused a huge rift between our friends, his friends, and him, and apparently he's no longer welcome back to them. I don't care about all that, though. I'm just glad that I dodged this major bullet because I know for a fact that if he had it in him to pull something like this now, I can only imagine the things he might have done before and would do if I continued to give him a chance. As much as it all still feels unreal, I've started moving on. Thank you all for coming on this journey with me. NTA. I totally saw the citizenship angle coming even before OP even posted the update. It seems like something is very wrong with this guy. Either he's really stupid or a whole mastermind. Regardless of what it is, I'm glad OP did not stick around to find out. NTA. Good on putting your parents in their place about David because they seemed almost obsessed with him. I wonder what they had to say after OP found out about his engagement. OP's reply. Absolutely nothing. They've been quiet and have gotten even quieter after I've told them about his engagement. It's of no surprise that their lack of response is out of shame, guilt, and shock. I guess they'll come around eventually. I'm a 36-year-old male. My daughter is 3. She may be 3, but she has the mindset of a 13-year-old and is probably more stubborn. We've been living in this street for about 18 months now, and over the last couple of months, she's been out in the street and park playing with a lot of the other kids. I'm not quite comfortable leaving her to play unattended, as although it's a relatively safe street, there are often cars on the road, and the main road leading into our street is exceedingly busy. This usually means that I follow her and any friends she's playing with around the street, making sure she's okay. One thing to note, there are other kids my daughter's age who are allowed to play themselves without their parents or older sibling there. Perhaps I'm overly paranoid, but I think that's too young an age to leave them unsupervised. Now onto the issue. The other day, my daughter was playing on her bike with her friends Sarah, 5, Kyra, 3, and Meg, 4. They went round to another boy's house, Stevie, 4. I don't claim to understand the full relationship dynamics at play, but the kids all dumped their bikes on the street, and Sarah went up to the front door and opened it, leading the group inside. I told my daughter to not go until she had asked, as I don't know these parents that well myself, which caused Sarah to ask me why not. I said it was a little rude, try not to be too OTT, as she's not my kid, without asking, which she ignored and went inside anyway. The parent in question came out and said it was fine, and that indeed it was an open-door policy on the street. It may be a bit uncomfortable that we have multiple groups of kids, including unattended 3-year-olds, wandering in and out of houses. Today, I feel like a line was crossed. I work from home, often listening to music and such while I do. My wife works away from home, and my daughter goes to nursery, but on this day, my mother picks her up and gives her dinner, etc. I was home alone, and at around 3:30, I come downstairs to make a cup of tea, to find Meg in the living room going through my daughter's toy box with the door wide open. I keep my cool, but lead her back round the road to her house. Her mom answers when I knock, and I explain what happened. She tries to laugh it off as happened in the previous encounter, but I say that I'm not okay with it and that I think it's unsafe for everyone involved. She says that I just don't get it because I'm one of the newer parents and that I wasn't to worry. She'd spread the word to make sure my daughter didn't get in anyone's house. She shut the door after that. That is absolutely not the outcome I was seeking. I'm happy for her to go to her friends' houses, just not in this haphazard way that seems to be happening now. My wife does support me for what that's worth. I don't want to impact my daughter's social circle, but maybe Meg's mom was right. AITA for being the only parent with an issue with this behavior? NTA, this is incredibly unsafe. Most children aren't abused by random evil strangers, but by acquaintances or family. You don't know who is in these people's homes. NTA, especially in this day and age, you don't want to find yourself as a man alone with somebody else's child. Too many things you may be accused of. That's beside the point of it, just being weird to randomly walk into the house of people you know without them being there. You were upstairs, after all. What does this teach those kids? And then there's the risk of people thinking kids are away, let's do a couple workout together, to suddenly be facing your neighbor's kid in whatever spot you decided was sufficiently horizontal. This is about my oldest sister, Beth, 43 female. She's the oldest in our family, and I, 32 female, am the youngest. 10 years ago, I learned I was pregnant for the first time. It was a little unexpected, but my husband and I were so excited, and we told our families. Beth was a mom of 2 at the time. 2 days after my first US, I started bleeding heavily. Ended up passing out and discovered I had lost the baby. I called and told my family. My parents and siblings decided to come and see me. While I was on the phone with Beth, she told me she was pregnant and wanted to tell everyone to make the bad news easier. And would I prefer for her to wait until they had left the hospital, or would I like her to say it there? I told her I would appreciate her waiting until they weren't in my room. Even after asking me herself, she showed up and announced to the family around my hospital bed and made a big deal out of hugging every person there in celebration. The rest of the family looked shell-shocked, and our sister closest in age to me, Chloe, asked if I was okay and asked if I wanted them to kick her out. I was too depressed to answer. A couple of years later, I was diagnosed as infertile because I could not conceive again, even after we started trying. I told my family as a heads up because it got me down and I was trying to come to terms. Beth's words were, "That's all right because I'm pregnant." Cue even more shock from the family and them scolding her for saying anything even remotely close to that. I'm now pregnant thanks to IVF and a lot of help from fertility doctors and my wonderful OB. We kept quiet on our journey with IVF. Our families knew we planned to pursue it, but we didn't give regular updates in case it failed and waited until we got the positive pregnancy test to confirm. Babies were safe and still alive after my first scan, and we decided that was the time for us. During a regular family dinner, we made the announcement. Nobody knew it was coming, but during the announcement, Beth jumps in and says she believes she could be pregnant again. She wasn't, and wanted everyone to know. Chloe, my sister-in-law, brother's wife, and brother-in-law, other brother's husband, are throwing my shower. I told them I didn't want to invite Beth, that I feared she would try to turn it into her celebration or make some insensitive comments. They all understood and said they agreed. Beth found out I was having a shower and tried to find out info. She was told that info was not being given out. Then she tried to corner Chloe, who told her that she, sister-in-law and brother-in-law, had decided not to invite her, Beth, since she seemed to be unable to be compassionate to me or let me have a moment after a decade of struggling to have a baby. Beth then approached me and I told her I didn't want her there. She told me she's my sister and I'm being childish and petty about it. Her husband then called me and said I was punishing Beth for having kids easily when I couldn't. AITA? NTA. She's proven at every step of your journey she only cares about herself by the truly insensitive things she has said and done in regards to your fertility struggles. She sounds like she has a really hard time not being the center of attention, and if her husband has the audacity to say that to you, he's a problem too. They both sound exhausted.